The air inside Los Angeles International Airport pulsed with its usual rhythm, voices weaving together like an endless chorus, rolling suitcases clicking over polished floors, announcements echoing from distant speakers. People moved with urgency, each traveler pulled by their own stories, some arriving, some departing, all caught in the constant flow of one of the busiest crossroads in the world. Amid this chaos, Sophia Johnson hurried forward, her worn canvas bag bouncing against her shoulder. Her dark and untamed curls framed a face that held both exhaustion and resilience. She clutched her phone in one hand, scanning the screen with nervous eyes as she searched through the sea of strangers. Somewhere in this terminal, her younger brother Malik was waiting. He had promised to wear his blue jacket, which she always teased him for because of its ridiculous size. Her mother's treatment in Atlanta had drained what little energy Sophia had left. She carried the world on her narrow shoulders between working part-time shifts, paying hospital bills, and caring for her family. Today, she was only here because Malik insisted on visiting Los Angeles for a conference that might open doors for him. She didn't have the heart to say no. Through the crowd, she caught sight of a tall figure in a navy jacket. Relief surged through her chest. Without hesitation, she rushed forward. "Malik," she cried, her voice nearly drowned in the noise. She threw her arms around the man, holding tight, as if anchoring herself in a storm. His cologne, expensive, warm, unfamiliar, filled her senses. The solid frame beneath her arms stiffened in surprise. It took only a heartbeat for the realization to crash over her. This was not Malik. The stranger she held was taller and broader, his presence commanding in a way that sent ripples through the air around him. Slowly, hesitantly, Sophia pulled back, her cheeks burning. Her eyes lifted, and she stared into piercing blue ones, sharp and unyielding, yet touched by a flicker of curiosity. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I thought—" Before she could finish, uniformed security began closing in. Cameras flashed. People around them had stopped moving, murmurs rising like a wave across the terminal. Sophia's stomach plummeted. She had not just mistaken a stranger for her brother. She had wrapped herself around someone important. "Step away from Mr. Pierce, please," one of the guards said firmly. Mr. Pierce. The name sliced through the chaos, ringing in Sophia's ears. Leon Pierce, the billionaire. Even she rarely had time to read magazines and knew the name. He was the visionary behind Pierce Global Technologies, a company that had transformed industries and amassed fortunes. His face appeared on financial covers, his name linked to power, success, and whispered scandals of the elite. And she had just assaulted him in the middle of an international airport. Her legs wobbled beneath her. She could barely breathe as humiliation scorched her from the inside. I'm sorry," she stammered, clutching her bag against her chest. "I thought you were my brother. He said he'd be wearing this same jacket." The crowd pressed closer, some recording, others whispering with wide-eyed fascination. Sophia wished the marble floor would open beneath her and swallow her whole. But Leon didn't call for her removal. Instead, he lifted a hand, a subtle yet powerful gesture that froze his guards in place. His gaze remained steady on her, assessing, unreadable. "A simple mistake," he said, finally, his voice low, resonant, carrying authority, yet tinged with something unexpected gentleness. Her breath caught. He could have humiliated her further. He could have demanded she be dragged out. Instead, his tone disarmed her, softening the sharp edge of her panic. It's my fault," she murmured. "From behind you looked just like him." A faint curve touched his lips, a smile that wasn't for the cameras, but for her alone. "I don't think I've ever been greeted that enthusiastically before," he replied, his words carrying a touch of dry amusement. At that moment, another voice pierced through the air. "Sophia, there you are." Her real brother appeared, pushing through the crowd. his blue jacket confirming her blunder. He was shorter and leaner, his expression mixing relief with dismay as he noticed the security detail and the phones raised toward them. "Wrong guy," Malik whispered with an awkward laugh. Sophia wanted to disappear. "Yes," she muttered under her breath. Leon's eyes never left her, as if he saw something the others didn't. He could have dismissed her as just another face in the crowd. Still, her gaze had a spark, raw embarrassment, sincerity, and humanity. Something rare in his world of carefully curated appearances and hidden agendas. "Your car is waiting, Mr. Pierce," his assistant prompted, stepping forward. Leon gave a slight nod, but before turning away, he slipped a card from his pocket and held it to her. The gesture was so casual, it felt unreal. "If you ever want to ensure you've got the right person," he said softly, just for her ears. Her fingers brushed against his as she took the card. For a moment, time slowed. Heat rushed through her, unfamiliar and unsettling. She forced herself to glance away, her heart hammering as Malik tugged her arm. "Come on, Mom's waiting in the car," he reminded her. But Sophia's gaze betrayed her even as she allowed herself to be pulled away. She glanced back. Leon stood where she had left him, tall and composed, his eyes fixed on her retreating form. The airport swallowed her in its endless current, yet she felt his presence lingering, as though a thread had been tied between them, fragile but unbreakable. And for reasons she couldn't explain, Sophia knew this was not the end. That night, back in her cramped Atlanta apartment, Sophia sat by the window, the glow of street lamps painting her skin in tired gold. Her mother slept in the next room, weary from treatments, while Malik scrolled through his phone on the couch. Her phone buzzed. Another notification. Her stomach twisted when she opened it. The video. There she was, in grainy footage that had already spread across social media, hugging the billionaire by mistake, her face a mask of horror when she realized. Headlines shouted across her screen. "Airport hug shocks. Billionaire Leon Pierce, embraced by mystery woman. Romance or security breach." Malik teased that "you're famous now," but she could hear the worry beneath his tone. Sophia turned the phone face down. Not the kind of fame anyone wants. Her heart clenched as she thought of Leon's card still tucked inside her bag. She hadn't looked at it yet. She told herself it was nothing, a polite gesture to ease an awkward scene. But deep down, she knew it was more. Across the country, high above the glittering skyline of New York, Leon sat in his penthouse, his mind restless. His assistant's voice droned on about meetings and market reports, but his thoughts strayed back to the woman at the airport, the woman whose embrace had not been calculated, but genuine. For a fleeting moment, she had seen him not as a billionaire, a symbol, or a man. And for the first time in years, Leon wondered what it might be like to be seen that way again. The story of Leon and Sophia had only begun, born not of intention, but of accident. Their worlds could not have been more different, his of power and glass towers, hers of resilience and sacrifice. Yet fate had brushed them together, in a moment so small and extraordinary that it shifted their lives' axis. And sometimes, it is in the simplest mistakes that destiny writes its boldest lines. If this story has stirred something in your heart, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and follow the channel so you won't miss what happens when Sophia's world collides again with Leon's. Their journey is just beginning, and every step will test the fragile thread that now binds them. The rain came softly over Atlanta that evening, tapping against the thin glass of Sophia's bedroom window like a restless hand. She sat on the edge of her bed, the glow of her phone screen painting her face in pale light. Another notification, another headline, another stranger's opinion about the moment that had turned her life upside down. It had been 2 days since the incident at the airport, Yet the incident still pulsed through the veins of the internet. Clips replayed endlessly, dissected by news anchors, gossiped about by strangers who would never know her name. Or rather, they did know it now. Sophia Johnson, the mystery woman who hugged billionaire Leon Pierce by mistake. Her cheeks burned even at the thought. She had wanted nothing more than to forget, but the world would not let her. From the kitchen, the sound of dishes clinking broke her spiraling thoughts. She rose, tugging the cardigan tighter around her body, and found Malik stacking plates beside their mother, who sat hunched over the table. Esther Johnson's once strong shoulders had grown frail, the illness chiseling away at her frame. Yet her eyes, warm and steady, still glowed with the quiet strength Sophia had leaned on all her life. "You should eat something," her mother said softly, gesturing to the bowl of soup Malik had ladled. Sophia shook her head, forcing a smile. "I will in a bit." But Esther saw through her easily. She always did. Her gaze lingered, full of understanding and worry, before she returned to the bills spread across the table. Sophia sat opposite her, scanning the papers, insurance claims, overdue notices, appointment reminders. Each one was a reminder of the life she carried on her back. And now, on top of it all, the eyes of the world pressed in like a suffocating fog. "People will forget," Esther said suddenly, as though plucking the thought straight from her daughter's mind. "The internet moves fast. By next week, someone else will be the story." Sophia wanted to believe her. She tried to hold on to that sliver of hope, but deep down she wasn't sure. When she finally went to her room, she pulled her bag close and took out the card Leon had given her. The heavy paper gleamed faintly under the dim lamp. His name was embossed in silver, sharp and commanding: Leon Pierce. She turned it over, half expecting only a generic number or company line. Instead, there it was, his cell, handwritten in neat ink. Her breath caught. Why would he do that? Why would a man like him give someone like her a direct line into his life? It felt absurd, impossible. She set the card aside quickly, afraid of the weight it carried. Across the country, Leon sat in his office. The Manhattan skyline spread like fire and glass beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city hummed, but inside the penthouse, silence reigned. His laptop lay open to yet another acquisition proposal. Yet his thoughts refused to anchor themselves. Instead, he saw her face, the startled warmth in her eyes, the flush of embarrassment, the unpolished honesty. Her mistake had been rare, in a world where every smile aimed at him was measured and every conversation calculated. His phone buzzed. A message from his sister Elise, with a link to yet another article. Billionaire and the hug heard around the world. He closed it without reading. He had no interest in the world's opinion. But he couldn't shake his own. 3 days later, Sophia stood at the community center near her neighborhood, clutching a stack of resumes. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. Job fairs had always unsettled her, but this one felt heavier than usual. After being told by her manager at the grocery store to take some time off until things calmed down, she knew she needed something else to keep afloat. Yet as she approached the front desk, the receptionist's eyes widened in recognition. "You're the girl from the video, aren't you?" Sophia froze, her pulse leaping. Murmurs drifted from nearby attendees. She smiled politely, dropped off her papers, and fled before more attention could follow. When she returned home, her nerves frayed. A package waited by the apartment door. Elegant, cream-colored, with her name written in flowing script. She frowned, carrying it inside. Malik looked up from the couch, curiosity flashing across his face. "What's that?" "I don't know," Sophia admitted, her stomach twisting. She opened the envelope first. Inside lay a note, the handwriting unmistakably his. "Miss Johnson, I hope this finds you well. I am hosting a charity gala in Chicago this Saturday to benefit cancer research and treatment access. Given your family's circumstances, it might hold meaning. It would be an honor if you were to attend as my guest. Respectfully, Leon Pierce. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the second package. A dress. Black. Simple, yet exquisite. Its fabric whispers elegance without ostentation. Alongside it, 2 additional tickets. Is that from who it is? Malik asked, eyes wide. Sophia could only nod, speechless. Esther leaned forward, her expression unreadable. He knows about me. Sophia's throat tightened. It doesn't mean anything. It's just pity or PR. But even as she said it, she remembered the look in his eyes that hadn't been for the cameras. Something inside her whispered, it was more than pity. The week passed in a blur. Work shifts, medical appointments, restless nights, filled with thoughts she tried to banish. Yet the dress fit her perfectly when Saturday arrived, as though it had been made for her. You look beautiful, her mother whispered, a tired smile, lighting her features, like a storybook princess. Sophia shook her head. This isn't a fairy tale, Mom. It's reality, and reality doesn't end with happily ever after. But even as she spoke, a seed of doubt crept in. When the sleek black car arrived outside their apartment building, Malik gaped. Well, this is happening, he muttered, tugging at the tie he had borrowed for the night. The ride to Chicago was surreal. The driver spoke little. The engine hummed, lulling Sophia into a haze of nerves and disbelief. She stared out the window at the blur of city lights, her heart drumming louder with each passing mile. When they finally arrived at the Grand Hotel, hosting the gala, her breath caught. Cameras flashed outside red carpets, stretched like rivers of fire, and women in glittering gowns moved like jewels scattered across velvet. Sophia froze. She had never belonged to this world. But before panic could claim her, the driver led them to a side entrance away from the flashing lights. Mr. Pierce thought you might prefer something quieter, the man said kindly. Sophia swallowed hard. The thoughtfulness soothed her nerves, if only slightly. Inside the ballroom, glittered with chandeliers, the air filled with laughter and the clink of champagne glasses. Sophia gripped her purse tightly, trying to shrink into herself as heads turned whispers, following her like shadows. That's her, she heard someone say. The airport girl. Heat rushed up her neck. She wanted to vanish. And then through the crowd she saw him. Leon stood tall in a tailored tuxedo, his presence commanding his gaze, cutting through the noise like a beacon. When his eyes met hers, the room seemed to pause. His conversation halted mid-sentence, and in an instant, he began walking toward her, each step deliberate, unhurried, inevitable. Sophia's breath lodged in her throat. You came, he said when he reached her. She nodded, struggling for words. Thank you for the invitation and the dress. It suits you, he replied, his voice quiet but warm, carrying more weight than the words themselves. Before she could answer, photographers swarmed. One approached eagerly. Mr. Pierce, may we get a photo? Leon glanced at her, his question silent in his eyes. Sophia hesitated, then gave the faintest nod. His hand brushed against the small of her back as they stood together, the flash of cameras capturing a moment that would ripple across tabloids and gossip sites by morning. Yet for Sophia, all that mattered was the strange calm his touch brought, the sense that in his presence the noise faded. And for Leon, surrounded by the glitter of a world he had long grown weary of, the evening no longer felt like an obligation. It felt like the beginning of something for the first time in years. The orchestra struck the first notes of a waltz. Couples drifted toward the dance floor, laughter and silk swirling beneath the chandeliers. Leon extended a hand toward her, his expression unreadable, but his eyes unwavering. Dance with me, he asked. Sophia froze. I don't know how. I'll teach you, he said, a smile flickering at his lips. Her hand trembled as she placed it in his. The room spun with motion, whispers, and judgment, but as he guided her gently into the rhythm, everything else melted away. The music rose, their steps unsteady at first, but soon finding balance. Just focus on me, he murmured, his breath brushing against her ear. And she did. For a fleeting moment, Sophia forgot the headlines, the pity, the fear of not belonging. She forgot the bills waiting at home, the weight she carried, the world watching. There was only the music, the warmth of his hand at her waist, and the piercing blue eyes that held her, as though she were the only person in the room. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, under the golden glow of crystal chandeliers, a thread had been pulled tighter between them. Delicate, dangerous, undeniable. And neither of them could pretend it didn't exist anymore. The ballroom chandeliers glowed like molten suns, scattering light across gowns embroidered with diamonds and tuxedos, pressed to perfection. Sophia felt as though she were drifting through a dream, the weight of the silk gown brushing against her legs, Leon's presence, a steady anchor beside her. The waltz ended, leaving her slightly breathless. Leon had guided her with patience, his hand firm at her back, his gaze never wavering. When the final note faded, applause rippled through the crowd. Sophia lowered her eyes, cheeks flushed, conscious of the whispers swirling around them like invisible smoke. She's the one from the airport. Look at her dress, not her own. Pierce never brings anyone to these things. Why her? Each word struck like a pebble against glass. Fragile, dangerous. Leon leaned closer, his voice just for her. Ignore them. They don't matter. But they did matter. To her. To him. To this fragile thread forming between them. He led her to a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the swirl of dancers. A waiter approached, offering champagne. Leon accepted a glass but handed it to her instead, a gesture that felt protective and intimate. You're doing fine, he murmured. Sophia opened her mouth to reply, but the words froze on her tongue, because at that moment she saw her, Elena Chambers. Tall, statuesque, her gown clinging to her like liquid silver, Elena glided across the ballroom with the effortless grace of someone born to be watched. Her smile, painted crimson, was a weapon. Her eyes, sharp as glass, found Leon instantly. Leon, darling, she purred, leaning in to brush a kiss against his cheek. The gala is magnificent, as always. Sophia stiffened beside him, the air suddenly thick. Elena, Leon replied, his tone polite, but distant. You look... well. Her eyes flicked to Sophia, pausing just long enough to wound. And this must be the famous mystery woman. She extended a hand with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. Sophia Johnson, the airport hugger. Sophia swallowed hard, forcing herself to shake Elena's hand. Yes, nice to meet you. Elena's gaze drifted over her dress, her jewelry, or rather, the absence of it. That's a lovely gown. Simple. Almost quaint. It was a gift, Sophia replied honestly. From Leon, I presume. Sophia's silence was answer enough. Elena's smile curved sharply. He always did have good taste in certain things. Leon shifted, his jaw tightening. Elena. But Sophia had already stepped back. If you excuse me, I will check on my brother. Her voice was calm, steady, but inside a storm churned. She turned before either of them could stop her, weaving through the crowd, until the glitter and laughter dulled behind her. Malik was piling pastries onto a plate with shameless delight at the buffet. His grin faltered when he saw her expression. What happened? Nothing, she said quickly, too quickly. Malik set the plate down. Was it the ex? Sophia blinked, How do you... I may not be rich, but I'm not blind. That woman looked at you like she wanted to swallow you whole. Sophia's lips curved in a humorless smile. She made it very clear that I don't belong here. Malik shrugged. So what? You didn't come here to belong. You came because he asked you. And he asked you, not her. Her chest tightened at his words, but doubt gnawed at her. Could Leon truly want her here for herself, or was she just an accidental novelty, a distraction from the monotony of his world? Across the ballroom, Leon disentangled himself from Elena with polite but firm finality. She's lovely in her way, Elena said smoothly, her hand brushing his arm as though reclaiming old ground. But Leon, be serious. What could you share with her? A week ago she was invisible. Now she's a scandal. You don't need another headline. His blue eyes hardened. You don't know her. And you do, she countered, arching a brow. One viral moment doesn't make a relationship. The words pricked deeper than Leon wanted to admit, but he refused to yield. What I do or don't pursue is none of your concern, Elena. For the first time, her smile faltered, and he realized she hadn't expected resistance. He turned from her, his gaze sweeping until it found Sophia again. She was chuckling with Malik, though the laughter didn't quite reach her eyes. Something inside him shifted, a protective instinct, but more than that, an ache, a need to shield her from the venom of a world she'd never asked to enter. Later that evening, as the orchestra played a softer tune, Leon approached Sophia again. Malik, bless him, offered a sly grin and retreated toward the buffet, leaving them alone. I'm sorry, Leon said quietly. Sophia shook her head. You don't need to apologize for her. Still, he insisted, his gaze steady on hers. You shouldn't have had to endure that. She studied him, searching for the sincerity in his eyes. It was there, unguarded, and that made it harder, not easier. This isn't my world, Leon, she whispered. I don't know how to walk in it. Then don't, he said. Walk in yours. I'll meet you there. The words wrapped around her heart like velvet chains, impossible to ignore. But before she could respond, the MC called for attention. The fundraising portion of the evening was about to begin. Leon excused himself, mounting the stage with practiced grace. Sophia watched as he spoke clear, confident words, carrying genuine passion for the cause. He talked of healthcare access, families burdened by costs, and the need for compassion woven into action. The crowd listened enraptured. She saw him as the billionaire whose name filled headlines, and as a man fighting for something real, a man whose wealth had not stripped him of empathy. Her chest tightened painfully, because the more she saw of him, the harder it became to believe she could walk away. When the formalities ended, Leon returned to her side. Would you like some air? She nodded, grateful. Together they slipped out to the terrace. The city stretched before them, a sea of lights shimmering beneath the stars. The cool night wrapped around them, quiet and freeing after the heavy air of the ballroom. This is beautiful, Sophia murmured. I come out here every year, Leon admitted. It's the only time the gala feels real. They stood in silence, the hum of the city below like a distant heartbeat. Finally, he turned to her, his voice low. I have a confession. Inviting you tonight wasn't about good publicity, no matter what people think. It wasn't even just about the charity connection. The truth is, he paused, searching her face. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that day at the airport. Her breath caught. Leon, she whispered. We barely know each other. Our lives are so different. I know, he said. And I'm not asking for promises. I want the chance to know you better. No headlines, no expectations. Just us. Her heart pounded, torn between fear and longing. She opened her mouth to answer, and the terrace door burst open. Malik stepped out breathless. Sophia, Mom just called. She's not feeling well. Panic sliced through her. We have to go. Leon didn't hesitate. My car will take you. Within minutes, the three of them were in the sleek black vehicle, speeding through the city toward the small apartment where Esther waited. Sophia clutched her brother's hand, her thoughts whirling with dread and disbelief. Beside her, Leon sat in silence, his presence steady, his gaze on her, rather than the flashing city beyond the windows. And as the night unfolded, Sophia realized something terrifying and undeniable. Whatever this was, it had already crossed the line between accident and destiny. The apartment was quiet, except for the rasp of Esther Johnson's breathing. Sophia sat by her mother's bedside, holding her hand, counting each rise and fall of her chest, like a fragile metronome. The glow from the lamp cast gentle light over Esther's face, pale and strained, her once strong features drawn thin from weeks of treatment. Sophia whispered, brushing a damp curl from her mother's forehead. Do you need anything? Esther's eyes fluttered open, hazy but warm. Just you. The simple words pierced Sophia's heart. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against her mother's hand, willing her strength into the frail body beneath her touch. Behind her, Malik moved about, restlessly, filling glasses of water, straightening the clutter of papers on the table. His nervous energy filled the room. We should call the doctor again, he muttered. I already did, Sophia answered softly. They said the fever might pass with rest, but deep down she knew something was wrong. Before she could speak further, a knock sounded at the door. Malik opened it cautiously. Leon stood there, tall and composed. Even in his simple clothes, his presence filling the small apartment, as though he had brought the world outside crashing in. May I come in? He asked quietly. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. He entered with a gentleness that surprised her, as though aware that every movement might disturb the fragile peace of the room. His eyes landed on Esther, softening instantly. How is she? He asked. Not well, Sophia admitted, her voice tight. Leon stepped closer, his gaze steady. I can have my doctor come tonight. Private care. She shouldn't wait. Sophia bristled instinctively. We don't need. But Esther's faint voice interrupted. It's all right, Sophia. Let him help. Sophia's resistance faltered at the quiet plea. She turned to Leon, the weight of pride and desperation pressing against each other in her chest. Finally, she nodded. Within an hour, a physician arrived, discreetly and efficiently carrying the calm that only experience and privilege afforded him. Esther was examined, treated, and stabilized for the night, but the doctor advised hospital admission the next morning. As the man packed his things and left, Sophia sat heavily on the couch, exhaustion pulling her down. Leon remained standing, his gaze fixed on her as though reading the storm beneath her silence. You don't have to carry this alone, he said softly. Her laugh was brittle. I've carried it alone for years. I don't know how to stop. He crouched before her, his hands resting lightly on his knees, bringing his eyes level with hers. Then let me try. Her heart trembled, but her lips pressed shut. She couldn't answer now, not while her world hung so precariously between shadows and light. By morning, the world outside her apartment had already shifted. The photograph from the gala, Leon's hand at the small of her back, their eyes meeting as if no one else existed, had spread like wildfire. Billionaire Leon Pierce and the airport girl, new romance, from hug to high society. Who is Sophia Johnson, Pierce's mystery woman, linked to struggling family mother, battling cancer? The headlines were merciless, dissecting her life with surgical precision. Neighbors whispered in the hallway. Strangers lingered outside the building, cameras in hand. Sophia's phone rang constantly. Reporters, television producers, even gossip bloggers demanding interviews. By noon, she couldn't even leave for the hospital without being followed. Malik had to push through the crowd, his arm shielding her as they bundled Esther into the waiting car. Inside the hospital lobby, cameras still flashed. Nurses whispered. It felt as though her mother's illness had been stripped of its intimacy, turned into a spectacle. "Leon did this," she muttered bitterly under her breath, though she wasn't sure if she meant the press, the attention, or the invitation that had set this avalanche in motion. When they finally reached Esther's room, Sophia sank into the chair by the bed, trembling with exhaustion and fury. A knock came again. Leon entered, his expression grave. Behind him trailed a hospital administrator, deferential, eager to please. "I've arranged for the best care team," Leon said quietly. "She'll have everything she needs." Sophia's hands tightened into fists. "Stop. You can't just fix everything with money. Do you think that makes it better? Does that make this easier?" The words lashed sharper than she intended, but she couldn't stop them. "This is my life, Leon. Not a story. Not a problem for you to solve." He stilled, his blue eyes steady on hers, absorbing the blow without flinching. "I don't see you as a problem, Sophia. I see you as someone worth fighting for." The quiet intensity in his voice unsettled her more than anger would have. She turned away, her chest tight, her thoughts colliding. Part of her wanted to scream at him to leave, to take his wealth and power and the crushing spotlight back to his glass towers. But another part of her, a quieter, more dangerous, wanted to believe him. That evening, while Esther rested, Sophia slipped out to the small hospital garden. The air was cool, scented faintly with roses planted along the path. She sat on a bench, folding her arms around herself, trying to find a space to breathe. Footsteps approached. She didn't need to look up to know who it was. "May I sit?" Leon asked. She nodded, unable to refuse. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then he spoke. "This isn't what I wanted for you." "I never wanted it at all," she whispered. His jaw tightened. "I should have anticipated the press, the board, and the scrutiny. I've lived in it so long I forget how suffocating it is." She turned to him, her voice trembling. "Then why bring me into it? Why send the invitation? The dress? The car? You knew this would happen." "No," he said fiercely, his composure cracking. "I didn't know. I thought it would be different if I kept it private and let you choose. But the truth is, Sophia, since that day at the airport, I haven't been able to let go. And I don't want to." Her breath caught. He leaned closer, his voice raw. "You make me remember who I am when no one is watching. You make me want to be more than a name in a headline. That's why I invited you. Not for pity, not for charity. For you." The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. But so was the danger. She looked away, tears blurring her vision. "Even if I believe you, Leon, it doesn't change what this is doing to my family, to my mother. I'll protect you," he said. "You can't protect me from the world." The words fell between them like stones. Later that night, after Leon had left, Sophia walked back to her mother's room. Esther stirred awake, her gaze falling on her daughter. "He's different with you," she said softly. Sophia blinked. "What I saw it at the gala. And tonight. The way he looks at you. Not like a billionaire. Like a man who's finally found something real." Sophia's throat tightened. "But Mom, our lives. They are different," Esther finished. "Yes. But maybe that's why you were meant to find each other. Because you see what he forgets, and he sees what you hide." Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, retaking her mother's hand. Silence stretched, filled only by the soft hum of machines. But in her heart, Questions swirled like restless birds. Could she trust Leon's words? Could she let herself believe in something fragile and impossible while everything else around her crumbled? And yet beneath the fear, one truth pulsed steady and undeniable. The thread between them, fragile as glass, refused to break. The hospital should have been a place of quiet, a sanctuary of care and healing. But that morning when Sophia stepped into the corridor with a tray of food for her mother, she was surrounded by the hiss of whispers and the clicking of camera shutters. 2 reporters stood brazenly near the nurse's station, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent light. A third crouched by the window, his camera angled discreetly, but not enough to be invisible. Sophia froze, heat rushing to her face. "This is private property," a nurse hissed, trying to shoo them away. But the men only smiled thinly, muttering about public interest, about the right to know. Sophia turned quickly, clutching the tray to her chest, as if it could shield her from their gaze. She hurried back to her mother's room, her pulse racing. Inside, Esther sat propped against pillows, pale but alert. Malik perched at her side, scrolling through his phone with a frown. "Don't look online," he warned, before Sophia could ask. "They're everywhere. Articles, pictures. Even here people are talking." Sophia set the tray down with shaking hands. They were outside the room at the nurse's desk. "They know where we are." Esther reached for her daughter's hand, her touch warm despite her weakness. "Let them talk," she said softly. "They can't touch what matters." But Sophia wasn't sure, because already their lives were being pulled into the spotlight, their private pain turned into public curiosity. That evening, Leon arrived. He wore no suit this time, only a dark sweater and coat, his hair tousled by the cold air. Yet his presence still filled the small room, commanding space, in a way no casual clothes could diminish. He carried a bag of takeout Thai food, fragrant and warm, and set it on the counter as though he belonged there. Malik's eyes flickered with surprise, but softened quickly. He had grown used to Leon's quiet intrusions. Sophia, however, stood rigid, her arms crossed. "They followed me today," she said bluntly. "Here, to the hospital, to my mother." Leon's jaw tightened. "I'll handle it." How she demanded. "With more money, more silence." "You can't buy the world away." "Leon, it doesn't work like that." His gaze snapped to hers, fierce and unflinching. "Then I'll stand in front of it with you. If they want a story, they'll get it from me, not from you." The room grew still, Esther's eyes flicking between them, Malik pretending to focus on his food, though his ears burned with interest. Sophia exhaled shakily. "This isn't your fight," he said quietly, "that it became mine the moment you looked at me in that airport." Her heart lurched, but a knock sounded at the door before she could reply. Malik opened it only to step back sharply. "Oh, hell no." Elena Chambers swept into the room like a storm dressed in silk. Her heels clicked against the linoleum, her silver coat trailing like liquid light. She removed her sunglasses, slowly revealing eyes that glimmered with a satisfaction far too sharp to be kind. "Leon," she purred, ignoring everyone else. "We need to talk." Sophia stiffened her body instinctively, placing itself between Elena and the bed where Esther lay. "This isn't the place," Leon said firmly. "On the contrary," Elena replied, her voice smooth. "It's the perfect place. The world is watching, Leon. And it seems your new companion has drawn them straight to a hospital ward. How poetic." Sophia's hands trembled at her sides. "You shouldn't be here." Elena's eyes slid to her, cool and assessing. "I came because someone has to say what no one else will. You think you can survive this? You with nothing but debt and sympathy. The press will eat you alive. The board will destroy him. And your family." Her gaze flicked to Esther, sharp as a blade. "They will pay the price for your stubbornness. Sophia's pulse thundered in her ears. "How dare you!" "Enough!" Leon cut in, his voice cold as steel. He stepped forward, placing himself between the two women. "Elena, leave. Whatever you came here to do, it ends now." But Elena only smiled, her crimson lips curling. "You always were reckless when you thought you'd found something real. But this isn't real, Leon. It's infatuation, novelty. And when it burns out, she'll be left with nothing but ashes." Her words fell like poison, but Leon didn't flinch. Instead, he opened the door and gestured firmly. "Get out." For a moment, silence reigned. Then Elena's eyes narrowed, her pride cut. She slid her sunglasses back on with a snap and swept past him without another word. The door clicked shut. Sophia's body shook with fury, humiliation, and something rawer she couldn't name. She turned on Leon, her voice breaking. "Why did you let her speak to me like that? Why is she even here?" "She's nothing," he said quickly. "She came because she knows how to wound. That's all." "But she's right," Sophia whispered, her chest tight. "Your world will never accept me, and mine will never survive yours." Her words fractured the air. Leon stared at her, his jaw tense, his eyes burning between desperation and defiance. "You don't get to decide that alone," he said, his voice low. "Not when I've already decided you're worth the fight." Her breath caught, but she couldn't answer. Not now, not with her mother fragile in the bed behind her, with the echo of Elena's venom still staining the air. The following days blurred into exhaustion. Esther's condition stabilized, but remained delicate. Malik juggled errands. Sophia stayed at the hospital, and Leon came and went, sometimes late at night, always bringing food or quiet reassurance. Yet the press did not relent. Each morning new headlines emerged, some romanticizing her as a fairy tale heroine, others tearing her apart as a schemer, a gold digger, a woman unfit to stand at Leon Pierce's side. Sophia stopped checking her phone. The words cut too deep. One evening, she stepped outside for air. The hospital garden was quiet shadows, stretching long across the path. She sank onto the bench where Leon had once sat beside her, folding her arms tight around herself. Footsteps came, and she looked up to see him again. His coat collar was turned against the chill, his expression weary, but softened when he saw her. "You shouldn't be alone," he said. She gave a faint smile. "I'm always alone." "Not anymore," he answered. He sat beside her, their silence heavy, but not empty. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. "Elena said I'd ruin you, that your world would chew me up and spit me out. And maybe she's right. I should walk away before it gets worse." Leon turned to her, his eyes fierce. "You think walking away will protect you? Will the press stop caring if you disappear? No. They'll make their ending. And it will be crueler than anything reality could give. The only way to fight this is together." Her throat tightened. Together. It sounds simple when you say it, but it isn't. He reached for her hand, his fingers warm, steady. Nothing worth keeping ever is. The contact sent heat through her, fragile and terrifying. She wanted to pull away. She tried to hold on. She did neither. Instead, she whispered, "I'm scared." "So am I," he admitted. Their eyes met, and in the stillness of the hospital garden, the world beyond their fragile bubble seemed to blur. There were no cameras, whispers, or poisoned words for a heartbeat. Only two people clung to a moment they didn't know how to name. Sophia's heart thudded painfully. She pulled her hand away, rising quickly. "I need to be with my mother." Leon stood too, but didn't stop her. He only nodded, his gaze heavy with unspoken promise. As she walked back inside, she realized the truth. She had been running from Elena, had planted doubt. Yes, But Leon had planted something more substantial, something dangerous, something she could no longer ignore. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains of the hospital room, soft and pale, yet it brought no warmth. Sophia sat by her mother's bedside, her curls pulled back in a hurried knot, her eyes shadowed by nights without rest. Esther's breathing was even steady now, but Sophia's heart carried a weight that refused to lift. The phone on the bedside table buzzed again. She initially ignored it, unwilling to see the flood of notifications. But the vibration persisted until it pressed against her chest like a demand. With a sigh, she reached for it. The headline screamed at her. From struggle to seduction, the truth behind Leon Pierce's mystery woman. Her breath caught. Beneath it, paragraphs laced with venom claims that she had targeted Leon deliberately, that she had manipulated her sob story about her mother's illness to gain sympathy, that she was nothing more than a schemer with ambitions far beyond her reach. A photograph accompanied the words, her leaving the hospital garden 2 nights ago, her hand still faintly lingering in Leon's. Her fingers tightened around the phone until it hurt. She turned the screen away, but Malik had already seen. He swore under his breath, his jaw tightening. This is disgusting. They don't know you. They can't tell Mom. And yet the world will believe it, Sophia whispered. Her voice trembled with a mixture of anger and despair. From the bed, Esther stirred weakly, her eyes opening to find her daughter's stricken face. What is it? She murmured. Nothing, Mom. Just noise. Sophia smiled, but her mother's gaze lingered, as though she could see the cracks beneath the mask. By afternoon, the noise had escalated. Television anchors speculated about her past. Blogs published false interviews with supposed neighbors, claiming Sophia had always dreamed of marrying rich. Even her old workplace was dragged into the frenzy with anonymous sources, painting her as ambitious, cold, and manipulative. Sophia stood in the hospital corridor, her hands pressed to her temples, whispering judgment echoing down the hall. Every nurse and visitor seemed to glance at her with suspicion now. When Leon arrived, the storm followed him. Reporters swarmed outside the hospital entrance, shouting questions, thrusting microphones. He cut through them with practiced ease, his tall frame radiating a cold authority that forced silence. Yet his eyes softened when they found her. Sophia, he said, his voice low. She turned away, unable to meet him. You've seen it. Yes, and you still came. The words slipped out bitter raw. He stepped closer, closing the space between them, until his warmth brushed against her skin. Where else would I be? Her throat tightened. They're tearing me apart, Leon. They're tearing my family apart. My mother doesn't deserve this. Malik doesn't deserve this. And you, your company, your name. They'll use me to destroy you. Let them try, he said fiercely. Don't you see? Elena was right. I don't belong in your world. I can't survive it. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Leon reached for her hand, his grip firm, unyielding. Then I'll bring my world to you, and I'll make sure it's one you can survive. Before she could respond, a reporter's voice carried down the hall. Mr. Pierce, have you been financially supporting her family for months? Another chimed in. Leon, is she your mistress, your fiancée? A charity project. Sophia flinched, shame and fury warring inside her. But Leon didn't falter. He turned toward them, his jaw hard, his eyes like steel. Listen carefully, he said, his voice carrying the weight of command. Her name is Sophia Johnson. She is not a scheme. She is not a scandal. She is a woman I respect, a woman I care about, and anyone who drags her name through the mud drags mine with it. The corridor fell silent. Cameras flashed, recording every syllable. Sophia's breath caught in her chest. He had done what she feared most, spoken their connection into the world, stripped it of secrecy. But instead of shame, a strange, fragile strength bloomed inside her. Because for the first time, someone had chosen to stand beside her, not behind closed doors, not in whispers, but before the entire world. That night, the internet burned with his words. Some mocked, others praised, but the tide had shifted. Where there had been speculation, there was now declaration. Where there had been venom, there was now defiance. Still, Sophia couldn't rest. She slipped into the hospital garden again, the chill of the night air brushing her cheeks. Her heart was a storm, torn between gratitude and terror. Leon found her there, as he always seemed to. He joined her in silence, his presence steady grounding. "You didn't have to do that," she said finally, her voice breaking. "You didn't have to throw yourself into the fire for me." "Yes," he said. "I did." "Why?" Her eyes shone with unshed tears. "Why me? You could have any one, women with wealth and power, families that wouldn't make headlines. Why risk everything for someone like me?" He turned to her, his blue eyes luminous in the moonlight. "Because none of them is you. Because when you hugged me that day by mistake, it was the first real thing I'd felt in years, and I refused to let the world steal that from me." Her tears spilled, then silent and unstoppable. She turned her face away, but his hand reached gently, tilting her chin back toward him. "Let them say what they will," he murmured. "Let them shout, let them claw. It's just noise, and noise can't touch what we build unless we let it." Her heart ached with longing, fear, and something more profound than she dared name. "Leon," she whispered, trembling. But before she could say more, his lips brushed hers, soft, hesitant, as though asking permission. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Then she leaned into him, her body yielding to the truth she had fought to deny. The kiss was not fire, but warmth, not possession, but promise. It carried the weight of defiance, tenderness, and two worlds colliding and refusing to let go. When they pulled apart, her breath shuddered against his. "This will only get harder," she said, her voice fragile. "I know," he replied, "and I'll still be here." She closed her eyes, letting the words settle into the cracks of her doubt. For the first time, the storm outside felt a little less impossible. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. The press didn't relent, but the narrative had changed. Leon's declaration forced them to shift their focus and frame Sophia not as a scandal, but as a story. Still, the scrutiny was unrelenting. At the hospital, whispers followed her everywhere. Strangers stared openly. Yet when Leon walked beside her, his hand at her back, she stood taller. One evening as they left the hospital together, cameras swarmed again. This time, Sophia didn't lower her head. She met their gaze, her chin high, Leon's hand steady in hers. And at that moment, though the world was still burning with curiosity and cruelty, Sophia discovered a strength she hadn't known she possessed. Not because Leon had given it to her, but because he had reminded her it was already there. The city breathed differently at night. Away from the marble lobbies and glass towers, New York shed its armor and revealed something quieter, humbler. Sophia sat across from Leon in a small Italian restaurant tucked into a side street of Brooklyn. The walls were lined with photographs of families, the air thick with garlic and laughter. It was where Sophia would have chosen herself, far from flashbulbs and headlines. She had protested when Leon suggested going out, worried they would be recognized. But he had insisted, and now as she tasted the warmth of homemade lasagna, she almost forgot the weight of the world outside. "You were right," she admitted softly. "This is nice." Leon leaned back in his chair, a faint smile touching his lips. I wanted you to see me like this, not as the man in the magazines or a name on a building, just me, someone who doesn't mind bad lighting and checkered tablecloths. She laughed, a slight, unguarded sound. You don't fit here. Not really. But somehow, you do. His gaze lingered on her, steady and unflinching. So do you. Her cheeks warmed under his attention. She looked down at her plate, suddenly shy, though part of her wanted to drown in the intensity of those blue eyes. When the check arrived, Leon reached for it instinctively. Sophia caught his wrist, shaking her head. I asked for this one, she said firmly. You can't always pay for everything. It's dinner, he replied lightly. It's not everything. But it matters, she pressed. If this will mean anything, I need to know I'm not just another responsibility for you. For a moment he studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned back, surrendering with a quiet nod. All right. Tonight it's yours. The gesture was small, yet it loosened something tight inside her chest. She left the cash on the tray with trembling fingers, feeling like she had won a battle far larger than the cost of a meal. After dinner, they walked through the streets of Brooklyn, the night air crisp, the sidewalks alive with street performers and couples laughing beneath neon lights. Leon's hand brushed hers once or twice before she finally let their fingers intertwine. For the first time, she felt what it might be like to be a woman holding a man's hand. Not a scandal headline or mistake that had spiraled into destiny. Just Sophia. Just Leon. They stopped at a small record shop that was still open despite the late hour. Leon guided her inside, his eyes brightening with boyish mischief as he flipped through vinyl sleeves. Do you listen to jazz? He asked. She raised a brow. Do you? Every night, he admitted, pulling out a worn Coltrane album. Helps me think. She smiled, taking the record from him, her fingers brushing his. I grew up with this one. My dad used to play it on Sundays. His expression softened. Tell me about him. She hesitated, the ache of memory sharp. He passed when I was 17. Heart attack. After that, it was just Mom, Malik, and me. I guess that's when I learned to carry more than I should. Leon's hand covered hers gently. No words were offered, only presence. And in that silence, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt in years seen. Their evening ended with coffee at a corner diner that served burnt brew in chipped mugs. They lingered until nearly midnight, talking about everything and nothing. The books they had loved, the streets. They missed the weight of loneliness neither had dared confess before. When Leon finally drove her back to the hospital, Sophia's chest felt lighter. For a fleeting night, she had tasted what it meant to live without walls, without the constant shadow of judgment. But reality waited. The next morning, Sophia woke to Malik's voice, sharp with anger. He stood in the hospital room, phone in hand, glaring at the screen. What is it? She asked groggily. He thrust the phone toward her. Pierce's reckless romance. Shareholders. Question: CEO's judgment. The article was worse than the headline. It painted her as a distraction and instability in Leon's otherwise pristine record. Anonymous sources from his company claimed he neglected major deals and that his decisions had grown erratic since she appeared. One board member said, if this continues, we may have to reconsider his position. Sophia's blood ran cold. He could lose everything, she whispered. Malik's jaw tightened. And they'll blame you. As if on cue, the door opened, and Leon entered, dressed sharply again. The softness of last night replaced by the steel of a man stepping back into battle. You've seen it, he said, reading their faces. Sophia nodded numbly. Leon, this is too much. They're turning your life upside down for me. He crossed the room, his eyes never leaving hers. They're using you as an excuse. That's not the same thing. But if you lose your position, your company, then I lose it. He interrupted, his tone calm but unyielding. I built that empire with my own hands. I'll make another if I have to. What I won't do is walk away from you. The certainty in his voice struck her like lightning, fierce and undeniable. Later that day, Leon attended a board meeting in Manhattan. Sophia imagined him standing tall in a glass-walled conference room. The city sprawled beneath his feet, the men in suits circling like vultures. Indeed, they pressed him, questioned him, demanded explanations. Elena was there too, her voice dripping with polished venom as she spoke of protecting the company's reputation. But Leon did not yield. This company was built on vision, he said firmly, on taking risks that no one else dared. If you think my personal life makes me less capable of leading it, then perhaps you've forgotten what made us great in the first place. The room fell silent. When he returned to the hospital that evening, Sophia was waiting outside in the garden. The calm wind lifted her curls and her arms wrapped tightly around herself. You fought for me again, she said softly. I'll keep fighting, he answered. But how many battles can you win before it costs you everything? He stepped closer, his hand lifting to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, as many as it takes. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. And what if I can't survive watching you fall because of me? He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. Then we fall together, and we rise together too. The words unraveled her defenses. She let herself breathe against him, believing for one fragile moment that perhaps love wasn't meant to avoid storms, but to endure them side by side. As Sophia returned to her mother's room that night, she realized something had shifted. The world outside was still ruthless, the press circling like wolves and the board scheming. But within her a small ember glowed, stubborn and bright. She was no longer just the woman who had accidentally stumbled into a billionaire's life. She was the woman he had chosen again and again despite everything. And for the first time, she wondered if she could choose him back entirely recklessly, no matter the cost. The morning air outside the hospital was thick with voices. Reporters lined the sidewalk, their microphones raised like weapons, their cameras flashing even before Sophia appeared. She had grown accustomed to slipping out through side doors, to hiding her face beneath the hood of her jacket. But today fate betrayed her. She had gone only as far as the cafe across the street to bring her mother tea. When she returned, she found them waiting closer, sharper, more determined. There she is! Someone shouted. The crowd surged forward. Questions rained down, each sharper than the last. Sophia, are you living with Leon Pierce? Did you pursue him because of his wealth? Are the rumors true that he's paying your family's medical bills in exchange for companionship? Her breath caught her hands tightening around the warm cup until it threatened to spill. She froze, the noise crashing over her in waves. The truth of her life, her mother's illness, her brother's youth, her exhaustion, suddenly felt like glass exposed under a burning sun. A microphone was shoved toward her. Do you love him, Miss Johnson? Her chest tightened. Words hovered on her lips, fragile, unformed. She wanted to shout no to their cruelty, yes to her heart's confusion, and stop the endless tearing apart of her life. But all she could do was stand there trembling. Then, like a tide turning, the noise stilled. Because Leon was there. He stepped from a sleek car, his presence slicing through the chaos with the authority of someone who had commanded boardrooms and headlines for years. The crowd shifted, microphones swinging toward him, but his gaze found hers first. Without hesitation, he crossed the distance, his hands settling gently at her elbow. Sophia, he said, his voice steady, grounding. Her throat tightened with relief. To the reporters he turned with a measured calm that belied the storm beneath his surface. You've had your fun inventing stories, he said. Now hear the truth. Sophia Johnson is not a rumor. She is not a bargain or a scandal. She is the woman I've chosen to stand beside me. And if you want to know anything more about us, you'll hear it from us directly, not from speculation, not from lies. The crowd erupted in questions, but Sophia barely heard them. His words hung between them heavy and undeniable. The woman I chose to stand beside me. Her heart ached with fear and longing all at once. By afternoon, the world knew. Clips of Leon's declaration spread like wildfire. News anchors dissected his every syllable. Headlines shifted from suspicion to certainty. Pierce confirms. Relationship with Sophia Johnson. Sophia sat in her mother's hospital room, her phone buzzing endlessly on the table beside her. She hadn't dared open any of the messages yet. Esther reached for her hand, her smile faint, but full of warmth. He stood for you. Sophia swallowed hard. Yes. And now the whole world knows. Malik entered with takeout bags, dropping them onto the counter. You realize what this means, right? They'll dig deeper. They'll want more. This is just the beginning. Sophia nodded, the knot in her chest tightening. She had dreamed of a quiet life, a simple one filled with art, laughter, and family. Now her name was bound to a man who lived under constant scrutiny. Later that evening, Leon arrived. His tie was loosened, his expression weary from another day of boardroom battles, but his eyes softened when they found her. "May we talk?" he asked. They stepped into the garden, the night air cool against her flushed skin. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. "Why did you say it like that?" she whispered. "Because it's the truth." Her eyes shimmered. "Do you realize what you've done? You've permitted them to tear me apart even more." "No," he said firmly. "I've taken their permission away. From now on, they'll come to me first. I'll be the shield." Her voice cracked. "But I don't want a shield. I want peace. A life where I'm not stared at, accused, or dissected." He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "I can't give you peace, Sophia, not in the way you want. But I can provide you with honesty. I can give you myself, and I can promise you'll never face it alone." Her breath trembled. "And what if I'm not strong enough?" "Then lean on me until you are," he answered softly. The words burrowed deep, dangerous in their tenderness. She wanted to believe him, but belief came with risk. The risk arrived sooner than expected. 2 days later, Leon invited her to his Manhattan penthouse. It wasn't to dazzle her, though the view of the city stretched like a crown of fire across the night sky, but because he wanted her to see where he lived, the world he inhabited. He said, "This is what they see when they look at me," his voice echoing faintly against glass and marble. "This is why they'll always doubt anyone besides me. But I want you to see it too, not as a cage or throne, just as a place where I wake, think, and am still human." Sophia wandered through the vast space, her footsteps soundless on polished floors. The walls bore no family photographs, no traces of laughter. It was a home of wealth, but not of warmth. She turned to him. "It's beautiful and lonely." He exhaled slowly, as though she had spoken the truth he had never dared admit. "Yes," he said, "until you walked in." Her heart clenched. The loneliness in his voice was a mirror to her own. For the first time, she glimpsed the man beneath the billionaire, powerful and profoundly alone. But outside those glass walls, the storm gathered again. That week, a significant business journal published a brutal op-ed. "Pierce's love life threatens the stability of Pierce Global." Analysts speculated about stock declines. Anonymous insiders whispered that Leon had become distracted, reckless. At the hospital, nurses whispered louder. Strangers approached Sophia in the lobby, some with admiration, others with thinly veiled contempt. One woman spat the words "gold digger" as she passed. Sophia fled to the stairwell, her hands trembling, her breath shallow. She pressed her back against the cold concrete wall, sliding down until she sat on the steps, her chest heaving. Leon found her there hours later. He sat beside her in silence before speaking. "They won't stop. Not yet. Maybe not ever." She looked at him, tears burning her eyes. "Then why keep me here? Why not let me go before it destroys us both?" His jaw tightened. "Because letting you go would destroy me more." Her heart cracked open, her tears spilling freely. He reached for her hand, lifting it gently, pressing it against his chest. "Feel that," he whispered. His heartbeat thudded steadily beneath her palm. "It's yours. Not the company's boards, just yours." Sophia closed her eyes, letting herself believe for one fragile moment. The following evening, a call came from a major news network. They wanted an interview not with Leon, but with Sophia. Against every instinct she agreed, not to defend herself, but to claim her voice back. The studio lights were harsh, the cameras unblinking. Across from her, the anchor smiled politely, her questions sharp as knives. "Some say you're only with him for money. Others claim you orchestrated this from the start. What do you tell them?" Sophia's hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "I say they don't know me. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't plan it. I met Leon by accident, and somehow that accident changed everything. I'm not here for his money or his name. I'm here because he is simply a man, when the cameras are gone and the lights are off. And he is someone I care about." The anchor pressed. "Do you love him?" Sophia hesitated, her heart hammering. The world seemed to hold its breath. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know what name to give it yet, but I know it's real." Her words spread across headlines within hours. Some mocked her, others praised her honesty. But for once, the story wasn't being told about her. It was hers. And when she returned to the hospital that night, Leon was waiting. He didn't speak at first. He only pulled her into his arms, holding her, as though the world could break apart, and it wouldn't matter. "You were brave," he murmured into her hair. "No," she whispered back, just tired of being silent. And under the weight of all they faced, Sophia felt something shift in that embrace. No longer just survival, no longer fear, but the first is the fragile bloom of something that might endure. For the first time in weeks, Sophia woke without the sound of cameras outside her window or the relentless vibration of her phone. Instead, morning light spilled gently across a cabin window, the beams softening the wooden walls and the knitted blankets draped over a rustic armchair. She sat up slowly, disoriented, until memory caught up. Leon had driven her away from the city the night before, away from the hospital, away from flashing lights. They had followed winding roads, until skyscrapers gave way to trees, until neon blurred into silence. Now they were here in the quiet of the Catskills, in a cabin tucked against a forest, where no one knew her name. The sound of footsteps reached her ears. She turned to find Leon in the doorway. His sweater sleeves rolled his hair damp from the shower. He carried 2 steaming mugs, the scent of coffee curling through the air. "You're awake," he said softly, his voice touched with something lighter than usual. She smiled faintly, accepting the mug. "I can't remember the last time I woke up without dread. Then we'll make this a morning worth remembering," he replied. They sat together by the window sipping coffee, as the forest stretched before them, leaves shimmering in early autumn gold. It was a world apart, untouched, serene. For a fleeting moment, Sophia almost believed they could live like this, 2 people with no headlines, no battles, no scars but their own. "You needed this," Leon murmured. She glanced at him. "And you." His eyes softened. "More than you know." They spent the day in quiet ease. He showed her how to light the fireplace. She teased him when he fumbled with kindling his billionaire hands, unaccustomed to matches. They cooked together in the tiny kitchen, burning the edges of pancakes, but laughing until their stomachs hurt. In the afternoon, they walked through the forest trail. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy scent of pine and the rustle of squirrels darting through branches. Leon kept close beside her, his hand occasionally brushing hers, his silence comfortable. At one point, they reached a clearing where sunlight spilled golden across tall grass. Sophia tilted her face toward the sky, closing her eyes, her curls catching the light. Leon stopped walking, simply watching her, his chest tightening with something he could no longer deny. Opening her eyes, she caught his gaze steady and unguarded. The world stilled around them. "Leon," she whispered, but before the words could form, he closed the distance, his lips meeting hers, with a tenderness that unraveled every doubt. The kiss deepened slowly, tasting warmth, and the unspoken promise that whatever storm awaited them, this moment was theirs. When they pulled apart, her breath trembled. "This feels dangerous." He rested his forehead against hers. "It feels inevitable." That night, they sat by the fireplace, the flames crackling softly. Sophia rested against Leon's shoulder, her eyes half closed, lulled by the rhythm of his breathing. "This is what I want," she admitted, her voice quiet. "Not the money, not the name. Just this. Just you, and a place where the world can't touch us." He kissed the top of her head. "Then we'll find a way to make this our life." She smiled faintly, but deep inside fear lingered, because she knew the world wouldn't allow them to stay in this cocoon forever. And she was right. The next morning, as Leon checked his phone for the first time in 2 days, his expression hardened. Sophia watched his face shift from serenity to steel. "What is it?" she asked, dread crawling up her spine. He exhaled slowly, handing her the screen. The headline blazed in bold: "Pierce Global Board Demands Emergency Meeting Amid CEO's Personal Scandal." Sophia's blood ran cold. She read further accusations of distracted leadership investors threatening to pull out speculation about his unsuitable relationship. And at the center of it all, her name again and again framed as the liability dragging him down. Sophia set the phone aside, her hands trembling. "Leon, this is because of me." "No," he said firmly. "This is because they fear change. They'll use any excuse, and you're the easiest target right now. But don't mistake their prejudice for your fault." She shook her head, her eyes burning. "They wouldn't have this weapon against you if it weren't for me." He caught her hands, holding them tight. "If it weren't for you, Sophia, I'd still be locked in a glass cage, convincing myself that loneliness was strength. Don't ever think you're a weakness." His words pierced her heart, but didn't erase the truth. He stood on the brink of losing everything he had built. By evening, they returned to Manhattan. The spell of the cabin dissolved into the harsh glow of city lights. Leon went straight into preparations for the emergency board meeting, while Sophia stayed at the hospital with her mother, her chest heavy with dread. Malik found her in the waiting room. "They're going after him hard," he said quietly. "If he doesn't bend, they'll try to force him out." Sophia's throat tightened. "And if he bends, then they'll own him, and you'll be gone." The words struck like a blade. She had always feared not being enough, but now she feared being the reason he lost everything. The board meeting was brutal. Leon stood before men and women who measured loyalty in numbers and futures in profit margins. Elena was there too, her polished voice urging responsibility, her eyes glittering with the satisfaction of seeing him cornered. Leon, one board member, snapped, "You've tied yourself to a scandal. It jeopardizes the company's stability." "Stability isn't built on lies." Leon countered, his voice steady. "This company was founded on risk, on vision. If you think my personal life makes me less capable, then perhaps you've forgotten why you trusted me in the first place." Murmurs rippled around the room. Elena leaned forward, her words like velvet poison. "Leon, no one doubts your brilliance. But brilliance means nothing without discipline. We're asking you to end this distraction. Publicly. Please step away from her, and all of this disappears." Silence fell. Leon's jaw tightened, his gaze sweeping the table. Then with calm finality he said no. Gasps broke the stillness. "I will not end something real, because it makes you uncomfortable. If you think my leadership depends on silence and compliance, you never understood me. I will lead this company like I built it on truth. And the truth is, I will not sacrifice her to save your pride." The room erupted in arguments, voices clashing. But Leon stood unmoved, a storm contained within his frame. When he left the meeting, night had fallen over the city. He found Sophia waiting outside his office, her eyes searching his face. "They gave you a choice, didn't they?" she asked softly. "Yes," he admitted. "And you chose me." "Always," he said. Her heart ached at the certainty in his voice, a certainty she wasn't sure she could match. Because even as love bloomed fiercely in her chest, guilt gnawed sharper. "Leon," she struggled for words. "What if you lose everything because of me?" He brushed his fingers against her cheek, his eyes burning into hers. "Then I'll build everything again. But I can't make another you." Tears filled her eyes. She pressed her forehead against his chest, torn between fear and devotion. And in that moment, as the city hummed beneath them, and the weight of tomorrow pressed heavily on their shoulders, Sophia realized that true love wasn't about choosing the easy path. It was about daring to walk the impossible one hand in hand, even when the world demanded you let go. Rain streaked the glass walls of Pierce Global's headquarters, and the storm outside was a mirror of the storm within. The emergency board meeting had stretched late into the night. Voices raised, threats exchanged. Sophia waited in the lobby, her palms clammy, her body tense with every tick of the clock. When the heavy doors finally opened, Leon stepped out. His suit was impeccable, his presence unshaken, but Sophia saw the exhaustion shadowing his eyes. "They gave me an ultimatum," he said. Her throat tightened. "What did they say? If I don't end this they'll vote me out." The words hung between them, heavy and merciless. Sophia's chest constricted. She had feared this moment and felt it lurking behind every headline and whisper. And now it was here, brutal in its clarity. She forced herself to speak. "Leon, this company is your life. You built it from nothing. You can't throw it away for me." His gaze softened, but his jaw remained firm. "I didn't build it for them. I built it because I believed in something greater. And now, I believe in us. If they can't accept that, then they don't deserve me at the helm." Her heart ached at his conviction, but guilt clawed at her. "If you lose this, the world will call me your downfall." "Then let them," he said. "I would rather lose a company than lose you." Tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to believe love could be enough, but the cost felt unbearable. Later that night, Sophia stood at her mother's hospital bedside. Esther slept peacefully, her breathing steadier than it had been in weeks. Sophia brushed a strand of hair from her mother's face, her heart a war of love and sacrifice. Her mother stirred her eyes, opening faintly. "What's wrong, baby girl?" Sophia sank into the chair, her voice trembling. "He might lose everything because of me." Esther's lips curved into a faint smile. "If he loves you, then it's not because of you. It's because of choice. His choice. Please don't take that away from him." Sophia bowed her head, tears slipping free. "But what if I can't carry the weight of his sacrifice?" Her mother squeezed her hand weakly. Then carry the weight of your love. That's all any of us can do. The words settled deep within her, fragile yet steady. The following day, Leon stood before the board for the final time. Suits lined the table, eyes sharp with judgment. Elena sat at the far end, her smile thin, her voice ready to strike. "We need your decision, Leon," the chairman said. "Her or the company?" Leon's gaze swept the room, calm and resolute. "You speak as if those two things are separate. They're not. Because the man you trusted to lead this company, the man who built it into what it is, he no longer exists without her." Gasps broke out. Elena scoffed. "So you're willing to risk everything for an infatuation?" "No," Leon said evenly. "I'm willing to risk everything for love. And if you think that makes me weak, then you never understood why Pierce Global exists. Vision requires courage. Love requires courage. And I will not abandon either." The room erupted in debate, voices clashing like thunder. Some called him reckless. Others admired his defiance. But Leon stood unshaken, knowing his choice was already made. Outside, Sophia waited on the street, rain soaking her coat. She couldn't bring herself to sit still in the lobby or endure the silence. When Leon finally emerged, his face unreadable, her breath caught. "Well," she whispered. He reached for her hand, his grip firm. "They voted. By sunrise tomorrow, I'll no longer be CEO." Her heart cracked. Leon. But before she could speak more, he cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the raindrops. Raindrops or tears. She couldn't tell. "I don't regret it," he said fiercely. "Not for a second. Because you are not my downfall, Sophia. You're the reason I remember who I am. Without you, all of this means nothing." Her tears spilled freely now, her body trembling with anguish and love. "I don't know how to be worth that." "You already are," he whispered, "just by being you." And then his lips were on hers, the kiss raw and unyielding, a defiance against the storm, against the world. People stopped to stare, umbrellas shielding them from the rain. But Sophia didn't care. For the first time, she let herself fully believe. In the days that followed, chaos reigned. The media declared it a scandal, a tragedy, a fairy tale depending on the hour. Stock prices wavered. Analysts argued. Elena positioned herself as the savior of stability. But amidst the noise, a quieter story bloomed. Photographs of Leon and Sophia walking hand in hand into the hospital, sharing coffee at a small Brooklyn cafe, standing together, beneath umbrellas, circulated with headlines that spoke of defiance of love, unbent by power. Some mocked them, others celebrated them. But no one could ignore them. One evening, as autumn deepened, Sophia returned to the cabin in the Catskills with Leon. They sat by the fire again, the crackle of flames filling the silence. "What happens now?" she asked softly. He smiled faintly, his arm around her shoulders. "Now we build something new. Together. Maybe not an empire. Something smaller, but real." She leaned against him, her heart finally settling into something steadier than fear. Together, she whispered. And for the first time, she believed the word could hold against the world's weight. Theirs was not a perfect ending. It was messy, fragile, and uncertain. But it was real. And sometimes, that is the bravest ending of all. If you've journeyed with this stormy love story to the end, don't forget to leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and follow the channel to enjoy more captivating romance tales. Every bit of your support is the inspiration that keeps these stories alive.